There's something even a bit erotic and exciting about your partner telling you to do things that, like,
Uh-huh.
normally they wouldn't say out loud, and you definitely don't wanna talk about in the grocery store, right? And it's like, "Woo!
Yeah.
You're telling me to do that right now?"
Welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. I'm your host, Dan Purcell, a sex and intimacy coach for married couples. My mission is to help you build and maintain a sexually vibrant and emotionally intimate marriage. Join me each week as we explore principles and practical tools based on Christian values to create the passionate, joyful, and thriving marriage you're designed to have. Hi, friends. Welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. You're listening to part 2 of my special research project about the difference between just having sex and making love. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, which is episode number 300, I highly recommend you go back and listen to that. It'll make more sense for what we're talking about today in this episode. In brief, I wanted to better understand the difference between just having sex and making love. And it being episode number 300, this major milestone, I wanted to make it a special research project. So I've reached out to some mentors and experts that I admire, and I really wanted their perspective. And I've learned so much from them, and you get to hear what I've learned in this episode. Last week, we talked to 3 people. Today, we talked to 3 more people. I hope this inspires you in the way you think about how you relate to your spouse and how you make the everyday little micro interactions just a little bit more special, a little bit more full-hearted. And that's my prayer, and that's my hope, because it's really changed the way I view my relationship with myself, to my wife, and also my relationship with God. Today, you'll get to hear from the following friends and mentors of mine. First is Dr. Alexandra Stockwell. She has an MD, and she's a sex and intimacy coach. Then you'll hear from Trevor Hanson. He's a therapist turned coach that approaches intimacy challenges from the secure, anxious, avoidant attachment styles framework. Now, that's not the framework I use. It's a framework he uses. It's a popular framework. So I was really interested in his perspective when it comes to making love and having sex. And last, you'll get to hear from Aly Bullock. She's a friend of mine. She's also a therapist with a very popular Instagram account with a focus on helping couples work through communication challenges. So this is going to be a wonderful episode to talk about the differences between just having sex and making love, something more full-hearted in the way we approach our spouse. Okay, before we do a deep dive on what it means to make love, I want to tell you that our next cohorts for our men's and women's small group coaching is starting May 12th. That's just around the corner. If you haven't heard about it, it's a small group, so it's limited to 6 to 10 men and 6 to 10 women meeting at different times. And in this cohort, it's 14 weeks long. It's a combination of coaching and a course. So we do a deep dive on intimacy in your relationship with your aspect, and it gives you plenty of opportunity to make close friends with others in the group, so you can learn from each other, from your peers, and also learn from our coach. So this is ideal if you're in a marriage where you find yourself, you get along well, you're good friends, you parent well together perhaps, and generally you're really good, but you just wish things were better when it came to sex and intimacy. You wish that spark was there, or you wish this was something you could communicate better about. This is an ideal program for that. It's also really affordable, and it's customized to what you need in your relationship. You'll find all these details if you go to getyourmarriageon.com, click on events, and then scroll down. You'll see the men's and a section and a women's section. Now remember, group size is limited, so don't delay in signing up. And if you'd like questions answered or something, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you answer those questions. We just finished an incredible, amazing weekend with 19 couples at our in-person couples retreat just last weekend. I'm still on a high. I am so excited and grateful for these brave couples that have sacrificed so much to come to this retreat, and the growth we experienced together, the insights we gained together, the camaraderie, and just what we were able to go through together was absolutely inspiring to me. It's a reminder why I do this work is so wonderful and how important intimacy in marriage is. So if you want this experience for yourself, check us out for next year in 2027 for our next in-person retreat. Now is the time to get on our waiting list. Go to getyourmarriageon.com, click on events, scroll to the retreat section, and you'll see the buttons there to join our waiting list for next year. It's going to be great. We'll release the exact dates later. Now, you don't have to wait till April because in October, we're sailing on our cruise. We are nearly sold out. I encourage you to apply and join us for our upcoming couples cruise that we sail out in October that I've mentioned several times on this podcast. But in case you don't know, we're doing a full week Western Caribbean cruise, and it's a deep dive on sexual intimacy in your marriage. So if you're in a great marriage, you're communicating well, then this is definitely the kind of cruise you'll want to go on, or do a deeper dive on all things sexual intimacy in your marriage on this cruise. So you'll find those details also, getyourmarriageon.com, and then click on events. All right, now let's go learn more about making love. So, Alexandra, what would you say is the difference between having sex and making love?
Making love is wholehearted, whole body, whole soul. And I think in the context of a long-term marriage, it's never just what happens while two people are naked together. There's something about making love which reflects the greater context of emotional connection and depth of shared something that we don't quite have the language for, but it is the natural consequence of sharing a life together.
Yeah.
And it can be passionate and intense and wild to make love. It can be very tender and gentle. I really think of making love as many different flavors of communicating care and appreciation and enjoying the connection for connection's sake, while it is extremely nourishing and gratifying to the individuals participating, it is fundamentally a relational activity.
Uh-huh.
In contrast, we could talk about having sex or use other more intense terms, but I think the thing to point to is when it's using one another's bodies to
Mm-hmm.
create an experience. It's collaborative because each person is getting what they want ideally, but it isn't as fundamentally relational.
Okay, got it. So there's that contrast there, right?
Yes.
One's very relational oriented. So as you work with other couples and as you teach and educate, how do you help people move from that more, dare I say, transactional to more relational approach when it comes to sex?
Yeah, I love that you call it transactional, although I think when done least well, it's really even unilateral,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm using him for my body, I'm using her for my body. I think the most important thing in transitioning into making love, into having sexual activity be a celebration, many different flavors of celebration. It can be cooler, it can be more fiery, but ultimately a celebration. It really depends on who I'm speaking to because I think each individual on the verge of this transition from transactional to relational sex,
Mm-hmm.
each individual is going to be more inclined either to benefit from paying more attention to their partner and their partner's desires and physiological responses and where their mind is and what their heart needs, or is really going to benefit in paying more attention to their own body, their own physiology, their own responses. And I don't generalize. Like, it's not that most people need to pay better attention to their partner or most people need to be paying more attention to their own experience. I suppose if it does break down, the tendency is for a woman to learn to pay more attention to her experience rather than being performative and having a man's arousal pace things,
Uh-huh.
and for a man to pay more attention to a woman's physiology in order to let the pacing align with how well lubricated she is and how responsive she is.
Uh-huh.
That is true in general terms, But I wouldn't break it down along gender lines because so often nice guys, good men who are devoted to their women's well-being, while they could certainly use education in how to pay attention to her signs and indicators of where she is in the arousal to climax journey, it's also so important for him to learn to pay attention to his feelings and his desires and his experience and not have them feel kind of second place. So I feel like it really depends on who's in front of me, which way I'm going to guide them to grow in order to be more sexually relational.
Got it. As you're talking, the image that comes to my mind is kind of a couple that's really in tune with each other. They're almost seeing each other eye to eye, and they're together in it. And that seems it's not an automatic, I think. It's not like a strategy or like something you read in a textbook how to do either. It's something you learn how to experience together. Kind of like riding a bike. You got to do it enough times to get the hang of it.
Yeah, it's one of the incredible benefits of long-term marriage. I think in our culture at large, I'm talking specifically when it comes to sex, not on the other part of the relationship, that we tend to think it's best at the beginning and then
When you're
it
young.
deteriorates. What'd you say?
When you're young.
Yes, when you're young and things just happen easily, it's effortless and satisfying, and then it becomes less frequent and less nourishing. And when it comes to making love, having sex with the same person throughout the years and decades, there is this possibility that you get to know one another in the most exquisite and extraordinary ways. I recently celebrated my 30th wedding anniversary, and I would much rather have the kind of sex my husband and I are having now than the sex we had when we were in our 20s, which was relatively satisfying at the time, but the amount of depth and nuance and skill and understanding that we have of one another's bodies, that comes with practice, and I actually think your question about making love versus having sex is so important because if you are just having sex, then sex becomes one of the rare things in life that the more you practice, the worse you get.
Uh-huh.
But if you're really focusing on how to make love, how to honor yourself and honor your spouse in the most innovative and gratifying ways, well, then it gets better and better with time.
I like that. I like that difference. Like I get emails from people and my heart breaks for them. Usually it's the higher desire spouse emailing kind of this heartbreaking story of how just sex is infrequent or if it does happen, it's very like it's over really quick because they just want to rush through it and everything. Any advice for couples like that in a situation where they feel like they're just grasping for something because something's better than nothing and it's not satisfying for both of them? How do they move from there to something a little more deep and satisfying?
You know, I have a master class that I teach. It's exclusively for men
Mhm.
called How to Ask Your Woman for Sex So She's More Likely to Say Yes.
Okay.
And that class and then my coaching program initiating is definitely for the higher desire spouse when it's a man, which is not always, but more often the case. And so for such a man, the most important advice I have is to change your energy first.
Hmm.
Because so often when you're used to rejection and unsatisfying sex that can feel like pity sex, you brace yourself. You brace yourself for the no. You go in feeling kind of desperate and uncertain, not even really sure whether you should ask because you don't want to deal with another no. That's not attractive.
No.
It's just not appealing. She might even be a yes, but because you're bringing all that higher desire suffering to the interaction, it's a turnoff. So I think the very most important, or at least the first prerequisite, is change your energy first. Don't wait for the sex to feel better. You've got to feel better before approaching it, whether you work out or you meditate or you, I don't know, sing opera. You can
Uh-huh.
do whatever you want to do to just feel better
Mhm.
and confident and appealing.
And bring that energy to your spouse. Yes.
Does that mean she's gonna be a yes every time? Of course not. There's no guarantee, and that's unlikely anyway. But does it make it newly possible?
Mhm.
Yes. So, basically, I think one of the kind of false beliefs in our society is that the high desire spouse thinks there's something wrong with the low desire spouse.
Uh-huh.
And
And the low desire
most
spouse
often,
thinks something's wrong with the higher desire spouse sometimes for themselves.
actually, sometimes, but I think more often the low desire spouse thinks there's something wrong with
With themselves. Uh-huh.
themselves. Like, it is considered healthier and normal to have higher desire.
Uh-huh.
And in a way, I agree with that, but I don't think that that means the issue is with the low desire spouse, because at a minimum, if what's offered on the menu isn't appealing, there is no reason for her to want more of it.
Right, right. The lower desire spouse in this situation has a
Yeah.
very logical, legitimate reason why they are lower desire. It's because the sex being offered isn't great.
Because the sex being offered isn't great because it's only sex. This gets to the question of
Uh-huh.
sex versus making love. And my beginning by saying it's not just something that happens in the bedroom, because I think that's another thing. Most low desire spouses need more spark, more attention, more emotional safety, more alignment, more support, more appreciation, not in an overwhelming way, but in a consistent way that happens in day-to-day interactions. If you just compartmentalize sex to something that happens when you're having sex, that is less appealing to a low desire spouse.
Yeah, great. Tell me a little more about how making love is a matter of the heart. And this is where I'm coming from. Thinking back years ago in my own marriage, I'm the higher desire spouse. My wife is lower. And I really thought that if she would just have more orgasms, she would have more pleasure and then she would say yes more often. So I was on a mission to like improve my technique. and then
That's such an engineer's
I
attitude.
know,
I don't
right?
know if you're an engineer, but it's awesome.
Got a problem? We're gonna solve it, right? And
Yes.
as you can imagine, sex got worse between the two of us. What was missing?
What a beautiful question. To encourage, invite, make appealing things to the low desire spouse, one of the most important things is to let go of being goal oriented.
Mhm.
To really focus on making the invitation to sex pleasurable, whether or not it leads to sex, it can always lead to feeling more connected.
Mhm.
The way you touch one another, like, it's more important to have it feel good, well calibrated, connected, emotionally safe, interesting every step of the way
Mhm.
than to get to any particular destination. I think this is a place where if we're too focused on the destination, we lose the beauty in the journey.
Mhm.
And making love doesn't have the sense of being on demand or doing a favor. I
Mhm.
mean, that's the other thing. If a low desire spouse feels like she's or he is doing this just so the spouse feels better,
Uh-huh.
that is kind of a parental role. It's like providing comfort, and there's no turn on in that.
Nope. Not at all.
So I really think the key actually is more emotional attunement. And let's just say very straightforwardly, from the Gottman research, we know that one of the best predictive variables in having a long-lasting sexually satisfying marriage is a couple who discusses the sex they're having.
Uh-huh.
So 91% of long-lasting sexually satisfied marriages, the couples are talking about their sex. So I don't suggest anyone aim to be part of that 9%.
Uh-huh.
Learn how to have a conversation about sex that works for both of you, and it can be anatomical terms, it can be more vague, and it can be as detailed as you want, but one way to just get started is afterwards, just mention a moment that you enjoyed.
Mhm.
Like, talking about sex is not code for complaining, and it's not code for awkward conversations that don't fit the culture of your marriage. It is a description of using your words because any two bodies are so different from one another. So even if you're participating in the same experience, it doesn't mean you're experiencing it in the same way. And so really just start with, I loved when you looked at me as you unbuttoned your shirt. That would count as talking about sex. It's just something you become comfortable with through doing so.
Mhm. Great. All right. Before we recorded, we had a short conversation about contrast here. And I don't use this word on my podcast. It's the F word. But and here's the context. I got a message on our Facebook group. The person says, "My wife doesn't want me to make love to her. She wants me to F her. How do I do that? Like, do I spice it up? Do I buy some whips and handcuffs? Like, what do I do?" Now, in the context of what we talked about here, where we're saying there's a difference between just something more transactional, this man is asking for like a checklist of things that if he were to do, it would fit this wife's requirement. Can you explain why that approach of like, just give me the checklist, what to do, and how that would constitute what this wife really wants is not going to work in this case? My question's
Yes.
not really clear. I hope
No, no, but I would
it's
love
clear
to
there.
answer it. It's
Uh-huh.
very
Great.
clear to
Good,
me.
good.
So what this woman is asking for is not that he does a series of particular acts,
Uh-huh.
like getting whips or not, like whether it's that kind of, BDSM sex or not. That's not what she's asking for. What she is asking for is for him to unleash his beast,
Yes.
to tap into his primal energy, to not be so polite
And
and
gingerly and
careful
uh-huh.
and cautious, which I am sure that, first of all, just asking this question indicates it, but he is a good man.
Mhm.
He wants to do well by his wife, and most likely he has been well rewarded in his life for being polite, for being careful, for being considerate, for attending to other people's experiences more than his own. These are all very noble, valuable qualities in a man. But in the bedroom, a woman who's attuned to herself is yearning for the unleashed, uncontained
Uh-huh.
element, which I remember my husband who used to just never get angry with me.
Mhm.
Didn't mean he wasn't angry, and he certainly did resentful and pissy well, but he wasn't like expressing fury. And I
Uh-huh.
knew that I had made him angry. I mean, I hadn't done anything particularly outrageous, but
Uh-huh.
I just had made him angry. And so I would say, well, let me, express your anger.
Uh-huh.
And I remember when he said to me, Alexandra, I'm afraid that if I let it out, I'm going to hurt you.
Mhm.
My husband has a black belt in karate. He's a physician. He's very contained
Uh-huh.
and controlled, but I was asking to feel his beast.
Uh-huh.
I mean, anger and having sex or making love are not exactly the same, but in terms of just feeling his raw passion,
Mhm.
I wanted it in the bedroom too. I thought if he could express his anger to me, I'd have more access in he'd have more access in the bedroom, but he really had to work through the messaging that being primal was despicable for a man.
Mm.
And so
Is seeing that being primal in the right context is actually appropriate and can actually produce more good in certain cases.
a lot
Yeah.
more
Look
good.
at that
I'm
smile on
sure
your
she'd
face.
agree.
Uh-huh.
Like, she's yearning to feel this man
Uh-huh.
in like, the animal in him connecting with the animal in her in a way that is actually very loving.
Yes.
But for a man who's been raised well in our society, it feels too aggressive, too dangerous.
Mhm.
So I respect that care, and if he listens, I want him to know that I trust him to dial it in,
Mhm.
to feel the internal liberation and the primal truth of him in a very constructive rather than destructive manner.
Right, and that's making love. Another dimension of that, isn't it?
Yes, in fact,
It takes an enormous amount of
that is
trust.
more loving and
Yes,
more courageous
yes,
for him.
right.
Now, if someone is a kind of narcissistic, self-centered person who uses sex to get his own needs met, I'm not encouraging him in the way I've just spoken.
Right.
But in fact, most men are good, kind, polite men,
Mhm.
and they could use some stoking of the fire.
Uh-huh. Yeah, unleashing that. That is so good. All right. Alexandra, this has been great. Is there anything else I should ask you?
I think the one thing I want to add is that this is a realm of exploration. And anyone who has type A tendencies or a sense of perfection or looking good or being good, it can be very confronting to grow your capacities in making love in a gentle way or a rather intense primal way. And we all can be compassionate that there are things to learn. And so when you get it wrong, laugh and try again.
Uh-huh. That's right. This is you take the long game with this. You learn
That's
it.
right.
That's good. Thank you very much. Next is my conversation with Trevor Hanson. Trevor is a therapist turned coach. He helps individuals become more securely attached using the emotionally focused therapy approach towards things. That's his framework he operates from, and you'll get to learn more about his insights on what it really means to make love. So, Trevor, what would you say is the difference between having sex and making love?
One is mechanical and one is connecting.
Okay.
I think and here's the thing, both are good.
Uh-huh.
I think that's the conversation that sometimes gets lost in this. I feel like some therapists are like, "Oh, you must always be making love and it must be connecting." But sometimes it's like, no, man, like there was a I think it was one of my teachers in my grad school program, one of our
Uh-huh.
professors, and he made this analogy to sex being like pizza. He's like, some days it's like Little Caesars. It's just like, yeah, I just need something in my stomach. Like it's like hot, ready. The expectation is that it's just this is what it is. I'm not
Uh-huh.
like it's not memorable. And then
Uh-huh.
other times it's gourmet. It's like it's got that deep dish. You got those big old chunks of mozzarella on there and it's like
Mhm.
delicious. And I think making love is kind of like the deep dish and sex yeah, I mean it's still cool. It's still great. Like love a little Caesars every once in a while, but
Mhm.
it's just a different experience
Mhm.
between the two.
So in your work helping, the avoidant or insecure attached type people find more secure relationships,
Mm.
what have you found is a tool that helps them kind of lead more towards that um, in a sexual context, and more that making love style rather than
Yeah.
the more just having sex style like you talked about?
Yeah. I guess there's almost 2 things that I'm thinking of there. It's like there's the type of person who needs to be able to lean into the intimacy of sex and the
Mhm.
connection of it, which is
Mhm.
the one who, needs to lean more into the idea of making love. And then there's actually the other person who might have this expectation that it always needs to be very intimate and very loving, like, every single time, and then
Mhm.
they get hung up, and their insecurities tell them that if it's not that way, then they make up stories in their head that, like, "Oh, I'm not good enough," or, "We're not meant for each other," or any other scary narrative in your head, and honestly, like, I wanna help both people overcome the insecurities. The first one, that's the more avoidant type. He's probably
Uh-huh.
I say he because, like, well, it's interesting though, because the anxious avoidant dynamic can sometimes reverse when it comes to sex. Like, the avoidant male is oftentimes more avoidant in conversation,
Uh-huh.
and
But
she
insecure in
in
sex. Uh-huh.
yep, but insecure in sex, and but might pursue in sex a little bit more, but not pursue it emotionally and intimately. And so
I see.
I think it comes down to, honestly, the biggest thing is just, like, slow down, right? Like,
Mm.
I think mindfulness and slowing things down in sex makes it into making love. It's like,
Mhm.
simple things. Think about the person you're making love with. Why do you care about them?
Yeah.
What is
Uh-huh.
special about the fact that they give you their body and nobody else does? Like, that's kinda cool. I mean, I've had those kind of thoughts, and it makes it way more connecting.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Or, like, if they were gone tomorrow, what would I miss about what we get to enjoy today?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's finding more meaning in that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely, and it's kinda scary to go there if vulnerability is hard for a person.
Mhm.
If you have if your set of insecurities in life has to do with maybe the more avoidant attachment style, you're gonna have a harder time really going there. It's gonna feel like, oh, that's silly. Like, it's just sex. It feels good. It's good. Like, we don't have to make it anything that it's not, right? You
Uh-huh.
might have walls up there, but usually if somebody's there, then there's a deeper story. There's a deeper story around, like, maybe connection wasn't safe growing up. Maybe you didn't have that person who really made you feel like, yeah, I can be fully exposed, pun definitely intended. I can be
Uh-huh.
fully exposed and
Mentally, physically. Uh-huh,
yeah,
uh-huh.
physically, yeah, and still be okay and safe.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it requires some deeper exploration. The person that I honestly help the most though is the anxiously attached. The anxiously attached, they're more likely to overthink sex
Mhm.
and be
Mhm.
like, "Oh my gosh, like, it wasn't this, romantic connecting
Profound.
experience. It didn't feel
Uh-huh.
like making love this time, and so therefore something is wrong." It's like, "Well, hold on, like, I don't think we should hold ourselves to a standard where it always needs to be the deep dish pizza."
No. Uh-uh.
Yeah.
No. That's not practical, and it's not realistic.
No. No, and the funny thing is, the more you let go of the expectation that it always has to be, quote, unquote, "making love," the more often
Uh-huh.
it will be, because you think about the biggest turnoff of all, and just biologically,
Mhm.
um, I'm editing
Is
myself, I don't know how silly we can be here, but the biggest turnoff, I'll say it that way, is stress, is
Uh-huh.
anxiety, right?
Uh-huh.
It's even
Yeah.
functionally, like, male, female sex, you're not getting in there if she's stressed, right?
Uh-huh. Right.
You're not
Or he's not getting it up if he's
it
stressed.
yeah, yeah. I think guys have a little bit more pliability. He might be able to be stressed and fully awake, but, definitely not her. And it's like,
Not me,
man,
I
and so,
guess.
like, the less you're stressed and you're trying to control the outcome of
Mhm.
the sexual experience, the more,
Mhm.
loosey-goosey you're gonna be, the more present you're gonna be, and it's just
Mhm.
gonna turn into making love. You're not gonna try to force the flow and make it, when you try to force it into being this, like, making love experience, it usually stops it from happening.
Uh-huh. So, then does making love need to look so sanctimonious all the time?
Mm. What do you mean by sanctimonious? Maybe I'm not up to speed on your vocab
It's
there.
soulful, it's, like, quiet, it's
Ah,
heartfelt, it's
yeah.
serene.
No, I mean, that sounds nice, but I don't think so. I think it can also be, there's fun sex,
Uh-huh.
there's sanctimonious sex, to use your really cool word. I'm glad you added that to
Uh-huh.
my dictionary today. And And I think they can both be very connecting. I think making love you okay, let's break that down. I'm making something. What am I making? I am making love. Love, what is love? Love is a feeling, it's an expression, it's an
Mhm.
action, it's like a
Mhm.
combination of all of those things. And do I feel loved? And does my partner feel loved during the activity? Yeah. It can be rough and rowdy and fun, and I think you can also still feel loved. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that.
yeah,
And there's a certain language of sex that communicates an enormous amount of love, emotion, care,
mm,
concern.
mm,
And the other side of it too, the dark side, it can be very damaging too. It's a very
yeah,
powerful language.
yeah,
So
yeah, I
how we
think
use it.
the thing that really makes it is also safety, right? I think you're talking about that in one way or another. Safety is communication, right? Like
Mhm.
understanding how a person's doing, how they're feeling, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what's just where you're at, what the expectation is, can cause somebody to walk away. Because one person could feel like it's making love, and the other person's like, uh, I kind of feel used right now. And you can be totally unaware if you're not communicating. And here's the thing, I think there's responsibility on both parts. Like, if one partner is just walking away feeling kind of used, like they didn't get what they needed out of it, and the other one was like, yeah, that was awesome, then sure, the one who walks away going, yeah, that was awesome, can be a little bit more mindful of their partner and ask some questions and slow down and, those kind of things. I also think the one who walked away without feeling like they got what they needed out of that experience has a responsibility to voice that
Mhm.
without packing it into criticism. Because if you pack it into criticism, then it's going to create a lot more anxiety for the next round where your partner
Right.
is like, oh my gosh, okay, like I feel like I'm playing with a chemistry set. And if I pour the wrong thing the wrong way, like everything's going to blow up in my face. Versus if you gave him feedback like, "Hey, you know what? I like it when this happens, and I was really hoping that this could happen. Next time, can you do X, Y, and Z?" Um,
Mhm.
it's way less stressful than if I screw this up again, they're gonna shut down, or they're gonna get mad, or they're gonna tell me, the ways I failed them. It's like, don't make the consequence be something to be afraid of. If you want your partner to do something that would lean more towards making love for you,
Mhm.
incentivize them with positivity because then again, they don't go into sex with stress.
Yeah, I like that because it doesn't invite defensiveness in the conversation, first of all.
Yeah.
And I like how you want to incentivize the positivity because just research shows people are far more motivated when it's a positive reward than a negative consequence for behavior.
Yeah. And there's something even a bit erotic and exciting about your partner telling you to do things that, like,
Uh-huh.
normally they wouldn't say out loud, and you definitely don't wanna talk about in the grocery store, right? And it's like, "Woo!
Yeah.
You're telling me to do that right now?" Like, it's not criticism. It's not that you're being bossy. It's an invitation. Like, "Yeah, I want you to do this special thing that nobody else gets to do," and, it's like giving someone instructions also doesn't take away from the fact that it's genuine, right? They may not know, especially if you're Christian and you grew up your whole life and not doing any of this stuff. It's like, dude, I have no idea what I am doing at all.
Uh-huh.
I remember the
Uh-huh.
first, like, I mean, it's my 3-year anniversary yesterday. We're 3 years into this thing, and I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out. We're still like, oh, this is how to do sex. Like, I don't
Uh-huh.
know. And so, yeah, be patient with yourselves and realize that you're gonna have to ask for things that you want, and you're gonna have to be curious and like take away the stress. I think that's the theme so far. I'm not meaning to make it the theme, but I think making love is safe. It doesn't feel stressful,
Uh-huh.
and it's I'll add it's not selfish. It's
Mhm.
you're giving and you're receiving.
Yes. Can you talk more on why it's selfless to receive?
Yeah, so why it's selfless to receive.
Mhm.
That's a tricky question, right? Because, like, obviously the
It
answer
is, because
it's
we usually
selfless
think
to
like
give.
Yeah, it says in the New Testament, it's more virtuous to give than to receive.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
in sex,
Yeah.
like, I know this because at my retreats, I often ask the question, all right, would you rather be on the giver side or the receiver side? And there's far more hands to be on the giving side of sex because it's less
Mm.
vulnerable to be on the giving side.
Yeah.
You have a little bit more control. Receiving is
Yeah.
more exposing. But to
Yeah.
allow yourself to really get into a place of being to receive,
Yeah.
that
Well,
requires more selflessness. Well, maybe a less self preoccupation to be able to get into a place to calm down enough to really receive from your spouse.
yeah. Most definitely. Have you ever given somebody a hug and they just didn't hug you back? I hate that
Yeah.
experience, right?
Uh-huh. Or a
And it's
gift
like
and they don't receive it. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
the hug back is the reception, right? It's like, I'm
Mhm.
signaling to you that what you're giving me is a sufficient offering. It's like, it's
Mhm.
good enough, and, that it's validation. It's it's physical validation is to receive.
Mm. I like that. That's good.
So I think, yeah, both are important and going back and forth. It's also like a conversation. If you're having a conversation with somebody, I got real hot on the idea of getting curious about people. I read How to Win Friends and Influence Others
Uh-huh.
or people or
Yep.
whatever
Dale
else.
Carnegie. Uh-huh.
Yeah, 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 and he talks about just the curiosity and how if you sit at a dinner table with somebody, the guy who asks all the questions instead of talking about himself the whole night, everyone walks away feeling like that was the most interesting guy in the room, and yet he didn't really say anything about himself. But I think I got too hot on that idea, and I would
I
overdo
use
it
it
to
as a
where
strategy or a tactic. Uh-huh.
well, I just think I was in life, like, interviewing people, and that's not a good
I see.
experience either, right? It's about even in conversation, it's ask a question and then share a little bit about the same context of the question around yourself, right? Like,
Mhm.
they mention something that makes you feel like they have dogs, and you're like, "Oh, do you have dogs at home?" "Yeah, I do. I got this one." Like, "Oh, man, my golden retriever, he does this." You're adding to the conversation that shows, "I wanna tell you about me." And I think this concept goes back to the giving and the receiving dynamic of sex. It's gotta be both, right? It's gotta be both. It sucks to play tennis by yourself. That doesn't really work.
No, no, that's good. I had a friend in high school. I think he took that be more curious about other people
Mm,
to an extreme. The problem is no one could get close to him because he would always steer the conversation to about you,
yeah,
away from himself,
mm,
and then nobody really knew him.
yeah,
I couldn't know him. So knowing is very important, but also willingness to be known
yeah,
is the other side of that too. Both
yeah.
are important. Kind of a paradox to solve, huh?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
All right, my last guest on this episode for the special research project is Aly Bullock. She is a therapist with a very popular Instagram account all about communication, helping couples improve communication. And I really wanted her take because this is something I think she thinks a lot about. So let's hear from Aly. So, Aly, what would you say is the difference between having sex and making love?
Oh my goodness. I think that there are a few things. I think that having sex and making love both have a time and
Uh-huh.
a place. And I don't necessarily think that one is better than the other. I think both have their function in a relationship, but I would say having sex is a much more physically motivated
Uh-huh. Okay.
experience. Physical pleasure, which is a beautiful part of what our bodies
Uh-huh.
can do and how we connect with each other. And I would say making love takes it that extra
Uh-huh.
level to be just more of an emotionally intimate experience where you're packing on, the body and the
Yeah.
soul,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
And so now that I just said that, I'm remembering, there's this concept that the soul is our body and our
Combined.
spirit,
Yes. Uh-huh.
right?
Right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, like, so when we're making love, like, we're using our soul,
Oh.
our body
Uh-huh.
and our spirit, like, our whole being, whereas having sex, which is so fun, oftentimes is just a little bit more focused on the physical sensations.
Yeah.
That's my initial
Got it.
take.
So it's more soulful when we really making love.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, and I think it's more about not just, "We feel really good together," like, "You really know me." you really are embracing me right now, my whole being. You are accepting me in the most vulnerable state that I can be, not just, oh, that feels really nice, which is
Uh-huh.
also fun, which is
Yeah,
also
that's
fun to
good
do.
too. Yeah, yeah.
And I do know some people hate the term
I
making
know,
love,
right,
which I
exactly.
think is
We
so
don't yeah,
funny.
we need a different word for that probably for those that don't like that term.
No, no, I just remember when I think I was first with my husband and my brother-in-law. We made some joke about making love, and my brother-in-law was like, "Oh, I can't handle it when people say that. It's the worst phrase in the world." And I thought it was
Uh-huh.
so funny because I was like, "There's nothing wrong with that. It's sweet. It's nice."
Yeah, maybe some people don't like it because it sounds like a euphemism or it's, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What if you're at the point in
Yeah.
your relationship still where you just don't feel like sex is for you yet? It's more for your spouse, or it's something you kinda check off.
Mm.
What steps would you encourage someone to take or things to think about or experience, maybe more of a matter of the heart there, to bring it into more of a soulful
Mm.
experience as you described?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really scary to take that step and be vulnerable and say, this feels like it's more for you than it is for
Mhm.
me. But I really do think that that is where you have to start, is just being really honest about what you're experiencing, because it's through honesty, it's through openness, it's through vulnerability that you become more confident asking for your
Mhm.
needs or speaking about what you want. And then your partner has the opportunity to meet
Uh-huh.
you there. I think a lot of partners would be more willing to meet you there if they really knew what you were
Yeah.
feeling. And so I would recommend someone start
Mhm.
simple. Like, you don't have to go into specifics about what doesn't feel good or what you don't like, but start with, "Hey, I have been feeling a little bit disconnected
Uh-huh.
lately when we've been having sex, and it hasn't felt as much like a shared experience. It's felt more like a transactional
Mhm.
experience. And here's one thing I think maybe we could do differently that would help me feel like I'm more engaged and I'm more with you during sex rather than it's just something that's
Yeah.
happening."
Yep, yep.
And then with safety, your partner opens the conversation. You can be more specific if that is helpful. Like, "Hey, it's actually when you do this certain thing, that feels really disconnecting for me, or that feels a little bit selfish." And instead of blaming them, say, like, "Tell me more about why you do that. What do you like about it?" And have a discussion about it rather than, you know, "You're the worst, you're so selfish, XYZ."
Right, exactly.
Again, it's so scary to push because you don't want to create more problems than
Mhm.
there are. But it's so important that you don't keep having sex over and over again in a way that feels
Yeah.
off
Yeah,
to
yeah.
you. Because then what happens, right? Your whole nervous system makes these connections of now every time you are going to go have sex, you're already feeling a little bit of apprehension or a little bit of apathy or a little bit of judgment towards your partner.
Mhm.
And so if your partner pushes back and says, "Oh no, I think things are fine," it's okay to say, "Hey, I'm really not feeling that. I'm really not feeling that they're fine." And it's not that I think you're doing anything wrong per se. It's that we just need to talk about how to bring me more into the experience so that I can feel what you're
Mhm.
feeling and feel really
That's
connected.
good. Tell me more about you hinted on this, nervous system regulation so that you can be more present in the sexual experience, so that it can be more soulful.
Ooh, our nervous
Ah,
systems
uh-huh.
are tricky. Are tricky. I think for a lot of partners, actually, I think for most people, we really are not as in tune with our nervous system as we
Okay.
could be. We're so impacted on the day to day by stress, by being touched out, by our diets, by exercise, by lack of sleep. All of things are impacting how we are physically functioning. And a lot of times we are coming to intimacy, coming to sex already in a place where we are either overstimulated or touched out or XYZ. And then when you rush into sex, when you're in that mode and you haven't really allowed your nervous system to regulate, a lot of times you build in this association of, "Oh, I'm always feeling a little bit off during
Mhm.
sex." And so, what I really hope more couples can learn to do is regulate themselves either before or during foreplay so that when they're actually having sex, making love, they're in a place where they're co-regulating together, where their nervous systems are at ease, feeling peaceful, so that that association with sex is, oh, this is a relaxing, this is nice, this feels good, rather than, oh, I feel tense, I feel stressed out. And so what that could look like, if your spouse has been hitting on you or flirting
Uh-huh.
with you earlier in the day, like making sure before you go into the bedroom or whatever, you do 10 deep breaths. You allow yourself to really just settle. And then as they start touching you or as you start touching each other, ask, hey, can we start really slow? Can we just start slow and let my body ease into this, let myself regulate? And then you're going to have a much better experience with sex in general because you're regulated.
That's so good. That's great. In a healthy relationship, is it always going to be making love instead of having sex?
I don't think so. I think that in a healthy relationship, there will be times when you are having sex to
Uh-huh.
have sex. And I think that's perfectly okay. You may have heard the term maintenance
Uh-huh.
sex,
Uh-huh.
right? Which is not ever
Uh-huh.
obligatory sex, because that's also not a great thing. But this is more of a, well, I'm not really that in the mood right now, but 99.9% of the time, I feel much better after I do this thing and much more connected to you after I do this thing. So it's, going in to have sex with your partner when maybe you're not really feeling turned on, but you're like, you know what? We are going to feel better after this. This is going to benefit our relationship, even if we're feeling a little disconnected right now. And sometimes that's having sex, not making love, where again, making love is that more emotionally
Yes.
transformative
Uh-huh.
experience. I think in a long-term relationship, it is really doing yourself a disservice to think that it has to be make love every time, because then your expectations are not going to be
Mhm.
met. And that might cause more stress on the relationship than if you just accept, hey, sometimes it's going to be amazing body and soul, right? Other times it's going to be, oh, that felt really good today physically, and
Yep.
let's move.
Uh-huh. That's good.
You know.
That's good.
I also want to point out that in order to make love to your partner, you are going to have to be putting in intentional effort much earlier on throughout the day or throughout the week, because there has to be that baseline emotional
Mhm.
connection. And so if you want to have these experiences, it requires being intentional, writing your partner a thoughtful note, noticing something that you really appreciate about them earlier in the day, asking them some deepening questions during your day-to-day conversations to get to know them better, making sure that you've established this baseline of, I really want to know you. I really see you. I see all your effort. I see what you're struggling with, what you're excited about. That is the foundation for beautiful lovemaking. And so for couples who want to have more of that, I think the focus shouldn't really be on the bedroom at all. The focus should be, what does our connection look like in the day and the week leading up to that intimate
Yeah, it's
moment?
about the whole person, not just,
Mhm.
it seems to be a little less
Mhm.
goal-oriented too, right? Right?
Yeah. Beautiful.
I'm
Yes.
thinking about a recent experience in my own marriage where it's evening, kids are in bed. I just want to connect with my wife. Like, let's talk. Let's
Yeah.
be together. Let's
Yeah.
play a game. But it's wanting
Yeah.
her, the whole of her, the soul of her.
Yeah.
That's the pursuit. And I think
Yeah.
that's what's being felt on the other side when we're pursuing
Yes.
each other
Oh,
wholeheartedly for that,
absolutely. Yeah, that's beautiful.
which means learning how to communicate well, work through conflict really well. And those other skills are valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, it's easy in a long-term relationship to be disheartened and kind of give up, especially when you have kids,
Mhm.
young kids like I do, and life is busy and you feel like, okay, it's been weeks of just feeling kind of blah. I'm tired. You're tired. It can be easy to, feel like, oh, what's
Mhm.
happening? But I think when you just refocus on those really small moments, those really simple bits for connection, let's play a game, like you said. Let's sit on the couch and actually, have our phones away and just be next to each other. Those things really, really add up and create that spark again, create that connection and that
That's
intimacy
good.
again.
That's good. That's great. I hope you found this pair of episodes inspiring and helpful for you as it was for me. I hope you hold your spouse close, look into their eyes, and learn to love well with your whole heart, even in the difficult times. If you'd like help implementing and applying anything you've heard in this podcast, I want to work with you personally. I offer private coaching as well as a very affordable program for couples to help take intimacy in their marriage to the next level. You'll find all these details on our website at getyourmarriageon.com. If you're unsure, reach out to me. We can schedule a free discovery call. Or you can try our program for 30 days for free. It's available for a limited time. So at least you can check it out and see what the value is for you and your relationship. Meanwhile, thank you again for listening to Get Your Marriage On podcast. Go share this episode with your married friends. And meanwhile, it's your turn to go get your marriage on.